I'm not creating something for y'all to consume. I'm creating something to share.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today I have the entire band Romantica, and you may know the members of Romantica. Well, let's just start with the first one. You may know Lou from Last Stop, Chip and the Dipshits.
I didn't think you'd read them out loud.
Well, you know, I'm sorry. And now Lou is thoroughly embarrassed. But I also have Owen from your solo project, Refractor.
Basement Tape Project, yes sir.
Excellent. And then Ava from Venus Overdrive. So everybody, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor. It's a pleasure.
Very excited to be here.
Hello.
Today we're going to be listening to Tales from Neptune off of the self-titled EP Romantica. So without further ado, let's listen to the song.
So she told me that I hold the universe in my pocket for you and me. I think you got just what it takes. You should learn the way to unlock it and then you'll see into me.
Welcome back. So, of course, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
Well, we sort of wrote the song in 3 or 4 parts, right? Because the first part was I was just messing around listening to Slint in my basement, and I was like, I don't need to care what these lyrics are about as long as they're saying a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it can be a story, it can be whatever, as long as it's something. So I had these chords and I had this drum beat, and I knew that I kind of wanted to do something silly, and I just wrote that story and had that sort of sit around. And then I sent it to you folks, and initially it was just sort of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just sort of like, yeah, this song's pretty good. Good job, Owen. It wasn't something that we thought we could like adapt in its initial format because it was half the tempo.
It was very like lo-fi, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
It was very like spacey and very like very much like, yeah, this is a guy making like stuff in his basement and he's having a fun time doing it. At least when I listen to it, I'm like, we cannot do it like that. We have to mess it up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So then we decided, hey, maybe this is something we can work on, but I guess at the same time I was also trying to string together an album to get out before I had to return to school. That version was just like this weird funky thing.
Yeah.
So like we sort of synthesized the weird funkiness and like the slowed down like storytelling a little bit and thought like, how can we turn this into a song?
I think it's pretty accurate to say Owen had a Refractor song and he brought it into the practice room and Ava and I just wrote new parts.
Exactly. That's exactly how it went. All I brought in were like these lyrics and these chords, and we just did our own thing off of that. Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, like we were rehearsing it and we were like, I don't feel like any of the ways that we're doing this were working. Like we tried a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And I think Lou, you were like, let's do it like The Cure. Like,
yeah. So we had like just met each other like a few weeks ago. And like the week I met these two, I was listening to Leave Me Alone by New Order probably about 12 times a day.
Very nice.
I was just like alone. We had just moved into the dorms and that's like what I did for 2 weeks straight. So yeah, it was very heavily inspired by like Peter Hook and Simon Gallup, where I'm like, I had just found a chorus pedal and like gave a set. I was like, new wave now.
Like Lou played that like version of the bass line that it kind of starts with. And I think there was a moment where like we all knew, like,
yes,
yeah,
it was very much that click where it's like, there it is.
Yeah,
we definitely took the original Refractor song and we just made it like twice as fast and twice as loud. But I think it worked out well.
Was it your idea to incorporate the? Well, I was going to say flange, but flange and chorus are very similar. But on the bass, I'm assuming that was the bass that creates that flangey kind of chorusy sound. Was that your contribution to the sound?
That bass tone, I don't use it in Neptune at all, but I do have a fuzz pedal as well that I use. But it's really like that tone is like the tone we decided to use for the entire EP because. We had just, at the time of recording it, come off of like, what was it, like 4 shows in 2 weeks or something? Like, we were really tired, but very happy to have played so much, and we wanted it to be a live sound.
Yeah.
So I just took everything I was using on stage and brought it to the studio. And that's actually a Boss digital chorus ensemble, so that is not meant to be used in a live setting whatsoever. That is a box I found from 1984 that my dad had in his basement, and I said, it's mine now.
Not even a rack mount piece, but what you put on top of your rack.
Yeah, no, it's like,
wow.
It doesn't have any batteries. I have to plug it straight into an outlet. Like, you can't put it on the floor because you can't click it on and off. You have to like put it on top of the amp. And everyone thinks that's a preamp or like some kind of rack unit, and I'm like, nah, that's just a digital box I found. But people actually come up to me a lot after our shows, and they're always like, what the fuck was that?
It sounds so cool.
So it's actually a digital signal, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It's meant to be used in digital recording and kind of like a setup like you have over here. And it sounds great live. I think Simon Gallup and Robert Smith used very, very similar pedals made by Boss at the same time. I just so happened to find the digital version.
Let's talk a little bit about how this song came together, but mainly in the lyrics you kind of wrote these together, the music and the lyrics together. I'm curious, do you usually think about where you're going to go with it, or you want to actually, you just kind of want it to happen? I asked the worst questions, but
no, not at all. Not at all. So generally it's like when I come to these two with like a song or something that I'm looking at doing, I just want to come in with what I did or what I'm going to be doing on stage. I only want to influence them with guitar and lyrics and just have them ignore all the other stuff. The process for sort of writing lyrics and knowing where to go, it comes from that recording process that all that stuff's recorded in. It's all done multi-track on a Tascam 4-track. In order to record something like that, you sort of need to have an idea, but multiple ideas pop up along the way as you're tracking things. So I came up with the guitar chords and was like, okay, I know I kind of want to write a song like a Slint song, and then I drum this really slow meandering thing, and then after that I'm like, okay, well maybe I add in some space noises, and then after that, that's when the lyrics start to become spacey. Like, what are these about? I don't even know. After that, then I come in and I have these lyrics and this guitar, and that's all that I have, you know?
Oh, okay. You actually brought this tape that was put together with the Tascam, and then you said that the song was sped up, and then how did you incorporate the new, I guess, like the voice of the drums in the overall like piece? I can't remember exactly what you said, but a meander. What was it that you said about the drum part?
Well, the drum part on the original recording was just like, it was nothing. It's basically a metronome with some like splashes in there from the snare, just to like signify like, yes, this is a song with drums on it. You can't call it half a song because there are drums.
So Ava, how did you create a drum part based on these Tascam recordings?
I think kind of what I played on it when we were working out live was more responsive to what we were doing in the room than to the recording. Generally, I listen to Owen's like refractory recordings of songs that we do and kind of see what I can take away from them. But ultimately, it was more of a process of thinking about like, how will this work live? Like when we take this to a show, how do we make this song something that people want to listen to or dance to or like mosh to?
Yeah.
And especially with this song, I think with being like, okay, we're going to make this our fast one. We're going to like play it very aggressively. I was kind of thinking like, how do I add to that energy? Like, I think we were hoping we could write a song that would get crowds going, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, we were, all of us, so excited that, like, this was, like, the third song we wrote, I think. And I think we were all, like, feeling that momentum when we were like, okay, now a loud one. Now one we can, like get people moving to. Because we all love going to shows and, like, getting in the pit and, like, you know, feeling the music like that. And I think we were all feeling that energy of, like, okay, our turn to make one now.
Exactly. No, that's good.
In addition to just kind of having, I want to call this skeleton, the refractor recordings, you had kind of a skeleton of the idea, and then neither of you went off and then wrote your own parts. This process was like live, right?
Oh,
like
this was done like in our room,
Sure.
yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So it's this collaborative like play back and forth.
It's almost troubleshooting in a way.
That's
like,
how we write all of our songs.
How do
It's
we
like,
fit this puzzle piece into this puzzle? I don't know.
yeah, someone like shows us a picture and then we're all in the same room at the same time trying to like paint by numbers. That's how we write everything. I think none of us have ever come to a practice or a hangout and be like, this is a complete song. I'm going to teach you how to play it. It's like everyone comes with like a draft they have. I think that the most like complete song we had was like Party Favors, but it was just a piano and we had to like sit there and figure out like, what do we play now?
Yeah.
And I don't know any music theory, so that was all Ava just saying like, okay, try to pitch match like this chord.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, is this right?
Yeah.
And she's like, kind of.
It felt very much like well, Ava made this joke herself where it was like you're in like high school band, they're doing like pitch corrections on you where they play a chord and you're like, is that an E? And they're like, try again. Ava and I are jazz band graduates. I think we understand.
It's interesting to come from different worlds because like me and Lou both like did like our more classically trained. Lou did a lot of jazz in high school and I did jazz and also a lot of like classical music.
Completely
like classical
untrained
percussion.
in jazz. They just handed me music and they were like, figure it out. I did not know how to read music in jazz.
Yeah.
I went off of vibes.
Yeah. That's how jazz rhythm sections are. You just play vibes.
That's
But
how
I come
jazz-
from this like very like regimented background of like, here's a note, play it correctly, like marching band and all that. And then Owen somehow taught himself how to play like every instrument with basically no guidance, like to an insane level of ability. Like I genuinely don't understand how you did it, because it's like the way you play guitar is like
Guitar is, it's like, that's just like a direct wires directly plugged from like the intuition part of my brain into a physical form is how that feels. But drums is like, I gotta figure this out. Dang it. Oh, okay.
no, you're a good drummer.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, a guitar you just need two hands. But,
Yeah.
drums you gotta add your feet. And,
yeah.
That's why I've never been able to like pick up the drums. I'm like, I can only do two things at once.
I'm in a room
maximum.
full of 3 better drummers, I think.
You've never seen me drum, man.
I find it fascinating when there's folks that can. I don't know. I've interviewed a few people that it's just like, I don't even know what chord it is. I don't know what key it is. I just put my fingers this way and it sounds good, so I'm going to go with that. And then I move it to a different place and I change my fingers and it sounds good here. And it's like, that works. Sometimes I wish I could step away from overthinking all of the, what key is it? What is, what scale is being used? And I mean, I think they're all very valid ways of approaching and ending up with the same kind of result. But it's just fascinating that we all take different roads to get there. I'm actually going to do my stumble along and do my interpretation of this song.
Ooh,
Okay.
exciting.
And I don't know if this is just like, I always want to be the first one to like say what it is and then hear that it's completely different. So whatever the interpretation.
Sure.
And the thing is that you may not have, when writing the lyrics, Owen, you may not have had this intention, but as you perform it and as you play it and you hear other people play the parts to make the song,
Yeah.
the interpretation changes.
Yes.
I feel like that's the cool thing of like, it's constantly growing. So I had this thought, I mean, there's this kind of like dreamlike quality about it. So that it's this idea of meeting this person in a dream, and then what exactly is their nature? The thing that fascinated me is this idea of, okay, so you meet this person, it's possibly in a dream, but then I feel like this piece is telling someone the story of this event or this dream, this astral projection. The first 2 verses and then the first chorus are talking about meeting this person and then finding out exactly what is so special about them. And then you kind of have this the chorus 2, even though you say the exact same thing in the chorus 1, it's actually you talking rather than the person, this mistress that you meet. Like in chorus 2, the voice, when you say I, is actually not the mistress, it's the storyteller. But I also think the chorus 2 is you're trying to pass on those special, whatever is special. You're becoming
Whatever
that
it
special
is.
person for someone else.
Sure.
So I just think that's, maybe I'm going back on this idea of maybe it's a relationship too, but that you look back on a relationship and you're like, was it really because that person was special or because they managed to say all the right words,
That's getting heavy.
So yeah, no, I mean, I hate to make the astral projection song very heavy, because that's usually not the nature of astral projection. But
we have a really funny running joke that we've never written a happy song. And it was fundamentally true until like a month ago. That's the joke with this one, is that everyone's like dancing to it, everyone's like throwing each other around, and we were like, guys, this one's sad.
Yeah.
very sad. I'm just curious what everybody else kind of thinks of as like the interpretation of it, or like maybe the intent of it.
Well, I'm curious, so I'm going to stay quiet for maybe a little bit. I'm curious what you two took out of it, and if that's nothing, then that's an okay answer. I'm just curious.
See, I am a deeply cynical person. Especially with like songs that my friends write. I have so many musician like friends and families, and obviously I'm a songwriter myself, so I'm never like trying to like rip the song apart and like figure out exactly what it is.
Sure.
Because it, like, just like you said earlier, it's like you create it with an intention, you give it out to everyone else, and they take away what they take away from it. To me, it was always like, it is what it is. There's not one right way. The way I always thought of it, I mean, I'm like screaming in the chorus of it. This is like the most aggressive song we play at the time. I guess we've replaced that now. For me, it was angry. You know, someone comes to you with promises, and the promises are just that. It's like pretty fancy worlds. I can give you a universe in my pocket, but that's fundamentally untrue. They're just saying it to say it. And I think I'm also taking a little bit of context from like things that have happened to like us at the time. I don't know, you know? For me, it was just like the way I thought of it was a past relationship, a past person you knew. They gave you empty promises and air and like tales from space. And now they're not here. I thought it was like an angry song. Bitter, maybe. Cynical, perhaps.
I'm curious what you have, Ava, but I want to say that is like simultaneously much more literal and abstract of an interpretation of what I had in my head, I guess. So now I'm just very curious. I'm curious. I want to figure this out.
What do you mean? Figure what out?
I don't know. It's interesting because I never ask people like, hey, what do you think this song is about? Because it's already enough of a pain in the ass to be like...
To write it.
To be like, hey... I was wondering if you could give me feedback on this song. I know you're very busy, you know, probably listening to The Cure right now, but I don't want to get in your listening schedule, you know. The fact that people are taking the time to interpret this thing, it's like, it's very cool. I don't know.
Ava, hit me.
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from it was kind of just the storytelling quality. Like, almost like the medium is the message of the way that you phrase it as, like, it's not entirely autobiographical. You are telling a story.
Yeah.
Communicating kind of that folky narrative thing. But I think I thought like the specific phrasing of this story, as a narrative. It's like every folk song where it's like you meet the devil at a crossroads.
Exactly.
You know, like you're relating your life and your feelings kind of to that world. And I think that just in the way that we played it, it was important to keep that energy of like the verses are the big thing. And
yes.
Yeah.
Like a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah, like it's like a Bob Dylan song. It's like a John Prine song.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that because I'm looking at that John Prine record right now.
I love that. I'm glad
Yeah,
it's
it's that kind of energy. It's a story, and it can have meaning, but it's also about the words being said and the way that they sound.
My takeaway is definitely more of like, yes, there's some sadness to this, but I don't know if I ever interpreted a level of like anger, but then again,
I think I was projecting a little bit with that first interpretation.
I mean, maybe my go-to is the sad song. Like I think about it as like, it's more the feeling is more sad than it is angry, and maybe it's also just like I remembered back of these ideas of like losing someone that seemed to hold so much promise. I don't know, it's weird. Like it's that nice kind of sad where you're just like, oh, I remember how good it was. I really know how shitty it was, but I really like looking back on how I think it was so, you know, wonderful, even though it's a lie. You know,
yes.
I mean, you know, it's like this weird self-soothing kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's like, I'm going to, like, it's comfortable to me. I don't know.
A little nostalgic.
That's the whole point of the tape stuff in the basement. That exactly right there. You summarized it. That's exactly what it is. It's all of it.
I noticed that you mentioned in the liner notes that Janelle Orcherton from bonus episode 18 recorded with you. How did that come around?
We all lived in this dorm. I don't know if I should say it out loud. Would that be like doxing us? I mean, we don't live there anymore. None of us live there anymore.
Blessedly so. We escaped. We made it out.
We all escaped Allen Hall. Rest in peace. We all have deep emotions about Allen Hall because that was just one hell of a place to live. I lived there for 2 years, so I think I should get like an award.
Yeah.
They should put your name on the wall.
They should.
Art or something.
They should, you know, memorialize it. It's just like basically run down tiny dorm on U of I campus. It's the arts and music dorm. Everyone there is gay. It's a fantastic place to live, and it's also a horrible, awful place to live.
Exactly.
But I'm talking around the problem. We recorded in Allen Hall's basement, which we were, like I said, it's an arts and music dorm, and we were like blessed to live in a place with like a professional studio in the basement. Janelle Orcherton was the music director at the time. And we played a show in Allen Hall with some of our friends. She was at the show. She emailed us a while after that and said, you guys get, what, like an hour and a half in the studio, free of charge? We just want to teach some students, like, the process. We want to use the room, because I think she was new that year. She hadn't had a project yet. Everyone else who had that opportunity recorded a single, and we were like, nope, EP.
If I can kind of derail the conversation a little bit. So the initial show that we played there was kind of the impetus for some of this was there's so many bands in Allen Hall. There were so many bands there at the time. It's like there's such a community of artistic people there, like all sharing the same practice space in Allen Hall and living on the same floors and eating dinner together.
We made like Excel spreadsheets so we could like share the drum sets basically.
So the idea of that show was let's take a bunch of our favorite Allen Hall bands. Like who else played at that show?
Daisy Chain,
Dumb Down,
Venus
Overdrive.
Venus, yeah.
All those bands are people who lived in Allen Hall and were kind of a part of that scene. Like it's like a subset of a scene. It's like a scene within a scene.
Yeah.
Of like the Shambana music scene and the student scene and then specifically the Allen Hall scene. So the idea of that show is kind of memorial, like to draw attention. I'm sorry.
No, I interrupted, but didn't we want to make it like a battle of the bands? And then Laura said, "No, you guys can like do a cuddle. Like we're not gonna have people fighting in Allen Hall."
The bands.
Yeah.
Cuddle
I think it was Sean's idea to.
It was Sean's idea.
Yeah, our friend Sean.
Shout
who's
out
also
Sean.
roommates of Will from Daisy Chain. Shout out Daisy Chain. Yeah, so Sean, I think Sean, as he was very in on the scene, was like, let's do a show because he was at the time like the student like activities coordinator or something. So we did that show. And then kind of recording, I think we went into it with the same mindset of like, this is not only our own music or our own expression, it's also kind of a tribute to this community and this very like ephemeral scene that we have.
Yeah. I think we talked about it and Janelle had like proposed. It was basically like, you guys can record a single, and we asked how much time we had, and we had like an hour and a half. As I mentioned earlier, we had just come off playing like a month of shows, which was like crazy for a band that young. We had formed in September and we recorded in not October. It was in the spring anyway. So it was like a crazy turnaround for us to like form the band. Second semester for us was like 2 months of straight shows. It was crazy. And like Ava said, it was like a very ephemeral feeling. And I think we were just really happy for an opportunity to capture that like time and space in a bottle.
Yeah.
Like that's what the EP is for me, is like,
Me too.
that's how we sounded when we were playing those shows.
Yes.
We managed to capture it on tape, and here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we did record all of it live. Like all the vocals, you hear everything. There were, I think, a few overdubs, but like 99% of it was live on the floor.
And most of it was like take one or two. Honestly.
Thank you for doing that, because I really want people to get away from the recording reluctance. Like, don't be afraid of that initial, maybe possible terrible start, because I think, one, even if, I mean, granted, please share it with people, but even if you just keep it for yourself, just to know where you started and then where you've ended up. There's a lot of things in life that let us know that we've progressed, and unfortunately with like music, since it's a very temporary thing, it can just drop off and then you don't have that reference point anymore.
I think that recording is kind of interesting in that it's both like creative and also kind of journalistic at the same time.
Exactly.
Like it's like a Hemingway book, or it's like a John Hersey book of like it's documenting a thing, and you're trying to record in such a way that you document something that's real.
Yeah.
Like writing in the most clear language. Like if you're Hemingway, you're writing with like no
For sale.
no adjectives or whatever, because you're trying to be journalistic and you're evoking those terms, and you're also at the same time trying to channel something else in the process of recording and make a statement artistically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the unification of those two like ideas.
I would love to reiterate just how grateful I am that we got to record at that time.
Yeah, that studio sounds good. It's a good sounding room.
It's a beautiful studio. They had Ava behind like the plexiglass drummer barrier, and I was like, I walked in and I was there, and I was like, okay, this is like real.
This is real.
Yeah.
To go back to that recording reluctance you mentioned, one of my old bands, we never put anything out because there is so much pressure to like make it good. If it had to exist, it had to be perfect, and that's not something I adhere to. I'm just also really glad like the three of us agree on that too, is like it is what it is, and I think art is art and it's good. There's never a pressure for something to be perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad we all just jumped on the opportunity, and like for the first thing for us to like publish, that's like crazy good. I'm like so happy with it.
I'm happy with it. I sort of wanted to mention, it's like, because you said art doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You don't have to keep revising and revising and revising to get this polished product and all that. I was maybe a bit worried to put this self-titled moniker on our EP because I was like, all right, I know our EP is how we sounded live in the studio, but, you know, if we work on something bigger, maybe there's one guitar in your left ear, one guitar in your right ear, Ava's playing 4 different percussion instruments, like...
The orange.
Yeah, exactly. Lou's playing the Fender Rhodes or something, who knows. But, like, by then, I realized, like, this is just a beautiful time capsule we've created for ourselves and anybody else who wants to stop by and listen, who wants to spend their time with us and see, hey, how did these folks sound in May of 2022 or 2023?
I think being vulnerable in art is very important, and imperfection is part of that. Like, I think that all my favorite albums are so imperfect. Like, you can hear them making mistakes on the record, and like, that's how it should be. You know, if you're not making mistakes, you're not being vulnerable.
For me, art is like you're creating the feeling of what you feel in the moment. You know, you might be mulling over it a little bit. I'm an artist. I paint. I draw. I make music. And for me, it's always just like this emotion right now, get it out. And that's art. And like to make it perfect is like kind of counterintuitive for me.
I agree.
I'm not creating something for y'all to consume. I'm creating something to share.
I thought I would just kind of mention what I thought was my favorite part of the song, and then I'm going to kind of turn it over to everyone to offer their favorite part of the song. You know, for me, there's something about the second verse that I think that's kind of the downturn, right? Like, I think that first line of, if I was thinking, I would have written down her magic words, you know, and I think couple that with, is the magic in her or what she said? This is part of one of the reasons that I was thinking of it as like a dream, is because like that thing where, I don't know if anyone else here does this, but it's like, oh my God, I wrote the perfect song. It was so beautiful, and you can't even remember anything about it. And it's like, you know, just this thing where it's just this free flowing thing out of you. And if you're imagining this whole thing connecting with this person and they know these magic words, and you know, as soon as you wake up, they're all gone. But you remember that those magic words were like everything. So I don't know. I just, there's something about that concept that it lands well. So that's just my favorite part. Ava, do you have a favorite part of the song?
I'm glad you got to me first, because I want to say this before anyone else says it, but I really like the part where Lou screams.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't even know where it is in the song, but that scream is like, I love it. I don't know. It's good vibes.
At the end of the first chorus.
Okay.
And the second. Where I screamed twice.
I don't remember.
One of them's louder than the other.
One of them is way louder than the other.
Okay.
Because the second time, I think Janelle Orkington was like looking at me and she was like wagging her finger or something. I didn't take enough.
You said you wouldn't scream on this song.
I did tell her I scrumped. I just, I did not move as far back as I thought. But Ava, I'm also really glad you said that, because I was thinking, I'm like, what if someone says this before me? My only fun fact from that show Ava was talking about at Allen Hall, we got a live recording out of that, and that's on SoundCloud.
It's on Bandcamp.
It's on Bandcamp.
It's isn't it the Blue Frog?
Yeah, it's the Blue Frog.
Yeah.
That's a whole
sorry
other story.
if I said that, but
That's a totally separate story.
Complete side tangent. I'm glad someone asked about it. We're not going to get it.
Yeah.
We can spend 3 minutes on frogs and that's it.
But on that live recording, I'm doing the same scream on it, and I showed that to my dad after we recorded it, and he thought it was our friend and my roommate Wolfie.
Professional screamer.
He was like, "Oh yeah, that's your friend Wolfie screaming." I'm like, no, that's me. Oh. No, I love screaming on it. Like I said, this was like our third song we wrote, and I knew I wanted to take part in like the vocal aspect of songwriting, and in my previous bands I had never had a chance. So that was just me being like, you're letting me scream? And then yeah, I think it's an important thing about how we do things in this band is that it's never like, oh, that's not something you do. Everyone brings in songs. Everyone has sung in shows before and could sing if they wanted to. You know, like everyone is making art for things. Everyone's like posting on our social media. Like it's very like, oh, if you want to do that, you can do it. I don't really care. We don't care if it's like, like it's not institutionalized. We don't have like lines that we have to like boxes we stay in.
Like it's not like, oh, you're the songwriter, you're the social media manager. Well, I don't know, whatever else. Like
you're not the drummer, you're a third of the project. you're not the bassist, you're a third of the project. I'm not the guitarist, I'm the third of the project.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
Which is why all three of us are here.
Yeah,
We're very... Thank you for letting all three of us come
Sure.
into your
Yeah,
space.
It's a pleasure.
If it fits, you know, it sits.
If we fit, we sit.
Yeah, we're all very adamant that it's like a triangle, you know,
Yeah.
and it's not a, you know, obtuse triangle where one side's like sticking out front more.
I feel like a lot of people assume that like the tall guy with the long hair that sings and plays guitar at the same time, wow, is like some sort of leader or some sort of I write the more songs or the better songs or whatever. But it's like, no, like I want these people to like do more songwriting than me. I look up to them. They're cooler to me than anything I'll ever make, you know?
If we had like an ideal setup, we're all just like in a line.
Yeah.
We've joked about that before.
An ideal stage setup is all of us in separate rooms, all with every instrument imaginable, and we just choose what we want to play at that moment.
That'd be too much for me.
Owen, what's your favorite part of the song?
The rhythm section of the song, I don't mean to say that as like a deductive way of referring to the bass and drums on the song, but when I come in and I have just like these lyrics and this guitar, it's all about what am I gonna be like sitting on top of today? Like how comfy is this chair gonna be, like audio wise, you know? The fact that Ava and Lou are like giving it their all for the entire song. It's like Lou sounds exactly like Lou does. You sound like you on that song. You sound very new wavy. You sound like how you look in a way. Ava, you sound how you look in a way. You're just blasting it. It rocks. It rocks. And I don't know if that's like, you can disagree with me on that, but I think it's a very good representation of what you two add to the sound of everything, your influences and all that. You love like, you know, Sonic Youth and all these loud musicians, but like your drumming chops really come from like listening to people who care about how many times they let those ghost notes ring out when they hit the snare, like get really detailed and things like that. So it's just really nice to hear how both of you brought your personality into the song.
It was definitely like the most like freedom we had at that point to write something. And for me, it was totally just like, I get to write whatever I want now. And that's what I chose, is like, this is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, let's be Peter Hook today.
Just today, not every day.
My last and final question of the section.
No.
There's still two more, so you
Okay,
get to be excited about that. Why did you pick this song to be the favorite song that you wanted to talk about today?
Like, I suggested it when we were talking about it, and my reason for suggesting it was because I think it was, of the songs on the EP, the most collaborative. Like, I think it's the most, like, we all went into it and added our part. And I think that kind of, like we were already talking about, kind of embodies our creative practice as a band.
Yes.
It is, like, all of us coming in from our different, like, experiences and lives and, like, musical backgrounds and putting that together and doing something different than any of us are able to make individually. And I think of all the songs on the EP, it best exemplifies kind of that ideal.
Ava suggested it, and once she said it, I was like, yeah, no, that's like the obvious choice. I have nothing to add except to like repeat what she said. Is like all of the EP is like a Refractor song that Romantica played, because that's just, you know, we were a brand new like baby band. None of us had like songs waiting around to be played, so we just kind of borrowed from Refractor. I think the Keep It Nice album, right?
I think that was the case for Tales from Neptune, but that was before we started working on it collaboratively. Around the same time that I started being like, hey, maybe this is more than the spacey little recording on the tape machine.
But like out of all the
Evolution or whatever.
Yeah, out of all the songs that like we had been playing at the time, that was the one we took the most like creative freedom with.
Yes.
More representative of all of you.
Yeah. I think we were thinking about doing, you know, one of the songs we like all wrote together, but, you know, we want to show off the EP too. This is like the song we open with pretty much all the time. That's pretty like characteristic of us, is you get on stage, you hear the bound of the song, and then the rest of the 45 minutes, like you get Romantica. And
Yeah.
Sure.
We want to hit people hard.
yeah.
Like, I think we all enjoy being loud, being heavy at times.
Yeah.
Not always.
Not always.
But
At times.
much of the time.
Yeah. Sure.
It's fun to just kind of like hit people with a lot of sound. And
It's
playing
fun
fast and
to
playing
like
aggressive.
start by like smacking them in the face.
It's like you're in the Romantica like world now. Like you've entered our realm.
No, like holding your hand through the door. It's like
Yeah.
you're falling in a pit.
Yeah.
And the pit is Neptune.
Champagne is also a band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Ava, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
I think for me specifically, and also for the band as a unit, the Barn, which is a DIY venue in Urbana, has been really important to us. So shout out the Barn. We played our first kind of breakthrough show there.
Yeah.
About a year ago. It was like January 2023. Like we'd played some shows before that, but they were all in like very silly locations that no one really went to. Like one of them was on the 3rd floor of the Atlanta Union.
Got shut down because Daisy Chain was too loud.
Yeah.
Like things like that. And this was our first show where like we played there and like people kind of figured out who we were. But getting other shows booked from there was a much more straightforward process from having figured out kind of that first house show.
Yeah.
And also they're just lovely people. They do a good job. They're always very kind and respectful. It's like people who know how to run a very good show.
You can tell they're theater tech guys.
Yeah.
Because they run such a tight show, and I always respect them for it.
So, Owen, do you have a favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
Well, as Ava said, my favorite DIY venue is the Barn, because those folks have just been so nice, and they also, as Ava said, they know how to run a good show, which goes a long way when everybody's sort of running around like a chicken with their head cut off and things. It helps when people are both kind and prompt when it comes to running a show. Because a lot of people that are kind when it comes to running a show, the show will end up running behind a little bit. A lot of people who are prompt will seem a little mean, and then you end up making people like us a little bit like antsy and things. But they're right down the middle. They're great. As for a non-DIY venue, Rose Bowl, like we just played there. We worked with a lovely sound person, Kenna, and they're just the best.
Oh, man.
Kenna is also in Sweet Milk. You should get Sweet Milk on this podcast.
I love Sweet Milk.
Yeah, we love Sweet Milk so much.
It's episode 13.
Oh,
What?
Not Sweet Milk, but Kenna.
Oh, it's kind of been on this podcast. Oh, that rocks.
We
love them so
that
much.
up.
They're the coolest. They're
Yeah.
amazing sound engineer, amazing person, amazing guitarist.
Very cool.
Heck
Very
yeah.
cool. Yeah. Shout out Rose Bowl.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah, but
No, you're good.
they've been on the show. I promise you.
We're gonna go hunt that down. Actually,
Yes, we're gonna go listen to
Drive
it now.
back.
Yeah.
What does
Excellent.
Kenna have to say?
And that was 2019. So Lou,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite venue?
Yeah, these two like hit everything I wanted to hit, but I do like I was thinking about the Rose Bowl because every time we play there, it's really relieving and really refreshing to pull up to a show. All you need is like Ava brings her breakables, I bring my guitar, and that's like it, right? I don't play guitar, I play a bass. Why did I say that?
It's a bass guitar.
It's a bass guitar. I can't pretend to be a guitarist and people are going to ask me to play. It's really refreshing to just pull up. You know they have everything you need to run a tight show. They have the people you need to run a tight show. And it's also just really cool to like be on a real stage and like there are just normal people hanging around. We got some like middle-aged men like dancing to our songs, and I was like, this has never happened even in my imagination.
Yes.
Right.
And like they were enjoying it. And I'm like, you know, you meet different people.
Yeah.
But to give an answer that wasn't already said, I'd have to throw in the Mirror. You know, maybe I shouldn't like dox myself. I live close to them. But a lot of those guys who run the Mirror are also the guys in Stanchek. And we played with them at the Rose Bowl like, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
They're just so nice to us. They make such good music. I'm like such a huge fan of them. That's also how we got a couple of shows we got, is that these guys were actually just fans of ours. And they asked us to play with them. And like I felt like they like dragged us up the top of the stairs, you know? They're very supportive. They're very professional. They're really nice guys, and they also run a tight show. Like, we love playing at the Mirror. We played like 2 or 3 times this semester.
It has the best backline drum kit of any venue I've ever played at.
The
Those drums were
ultraviolet
tuned
kit.
so nice.
I have to also put like an asterisk in there. The Mirror has like changed locations like 3 different times. So,
Still got that
It
mirror.
used to be on Nevada Street. It used to be on Nevada, where I live, on Nevada.
but all of us mean like the current Mirror. Like,
Yeah.
the
Gotcha.
Mirror as of 2023.
The spirit of the people who run it is, I would imagine, the same. Though.
Yeah.
This is going to be a bit of a digression also, but I would say just in general, as much as those are the ones we shout out, just the West Urbana house show scene in
Yes.
general has so many lovely venues that Lou mentioned living near the Mirror. I also live in West Urbana, like a little bit further south. I live within arm's length of the Forest, who I also love. We both live pretty near the Powder Room. There's just a wealth of
Spice
excellent
Rack.
DIY. Spice Rack. How could I forget the Spice Rack? We love those guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Stanchek guys.
Yes. Hell yeah. Love the Spice Rack. We both live, and Owen to a lesser extent because you live in Champaign. But we all live within arms. Yeah, you're God's strongest soldier for
I
that.
know, it's suffering.
Yeah, but we live within arm's length of so many lovely venues, so many lovely people.
Yeah.
We're very grateful
Cool.
for that.
It's definitely, not a deciding factor, but it's like a huge factor in like how I view music. Is like there's all of these people around us putting on shows constantly, making music constantly. There's never ever any pressure. Even if they don't know you, it's very supportive to be like, I am also here in this moment making music.
Yeah.
Just like all these other people. It's kind of a honor, you know?
I'm just going to throw in Stanchek. That's episode 101. Romantica.
That's us.
What do you think makes a good music scene?
This question's kind of funny to me because I live with Daisy Chain, a band. A very good band, I might add. And they just got a documentary made about them by another friend. And that was like a question straight from the documentary. I was listening to them in that documentary answer it. And also when they recorded it, I was on the other side of a door because I live in the same house. And like that's just something I've been thinking of for a while. And like there's a lot of factors, I think. And it's kind of hard to list them all for me. I think it really just boils down to like the people. You know, I think a lot of at least the opportunities we've had is really just because we have met some very kind and very sincere people who are genuine fans of our music. And I like can't believe that. My roommate mentioned, he's like, there's less people. It's like easier just to like even play a show because there's less people asking to play the same show. And I don't know. I mean, I think it just comes down to like everyone here knows each other and they all respect each other.
I think Urbana has a critical mass of people.
Yeah.
Such that there's enough people. There's like people who can go to shows. Like you can have multiple shows in the same night and they'll both be totally crowded basements. You know, but also few enough people that everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
Like we've been
ridiculous.
unpacking this recently that it's literally impossible to meet a new person.
Yes.
Like I go on Hinge and whoever I match with knows all my friends. It's horrible. Haunts me.
I mean, I think, you know, we've experienced that, but we've also experienced like, I think it creates a lot of opportunity for people who maybe would not do this.
Exactly.
You know, like you can go to a show and it will be someone from your like statistics class playing. That like gets you thinking and you're like, I know what they do during the day. Like they're not doing this 24/7.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, at least for me, when I was a freshman, I didn't even know these guys yet. For me, that was the thing that was like really encouraging. We're all in the same boat right now. We're all choosing to do this. You know, like if you're in Chicago, it's like these people, this is their careers. And that puts a lot of pressure on it. Because if you try and get out there, it's like, you know, I'm not a 50-year-old man who's been playing guitar for like 45 years, and I have a day job I have to do. I have to go to school. I have to get my degree, and it's like you start to get in your own head of like there's all these barriers. And I feel like in Urbana-Champaign, there's people do a lot to tear down those barriers.
I also think, almost conversely, I think institutional knowledge is very important. And I think that the thing that differentiates Urbana from other DIY scenes in Central Illinois and like other college scenes throughout the Midwest is there's a lot more people who have been doing venues for a few years.
Yeah.
Who know how to run a good show, an efficient show. They know how to run sound. They know how to keep the crowd safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and they're very willing to pass that knowledge down. And there's bands that have been around for a few years who know like how to play a good show, who are willing to pass that knowledge down. Like I've talked to bands who are from Bloomington or from other cities, and they're like, oh, there's so many good venues here. There's so many like good bands, because I think people are willing to pass down that knowledge.
That's definitely a thing, because like I live right next to the American Football House. I have to walk by that like every day.
Yeah.
And it's like Urbana, you cannot deny Urbana has a history of music.
Right.
Yeah.
My dad has a joke. He grew up in Canada. He's like, what else do you do in the winter besides like drink and play music inside? Like, and that's like true here too. Like, what do you do besides be creative? I think it just so happens that there's a lot of young people living in an area with a history of good music and an encouragement of each other to also create.
Because there's kind of the thing of when you're figuring out how to play a show, you go text your one friend who knows how it works and is like, hey, like, what do I bring to this show? What time should I show up?
Yeah.
You know, like, I think we had those conversations with some of our friends when we were trying to figure out how to play shows.
Ironically, I had friends texting me after we did like 2 shows, and they were like, tell me how you did it. And I'm like, you know, we're figuring this out together, but like we're all in the ride.
Yeah, like that's where I was going with that. Like even like last week I played a show at the Barn, and most of the other bands in that bill were like a little bit newer than like that show was with Venus Overdrive, but we're generally a bit newer than either Romantica or Venus Overdrive. And they were, one of the people in the other bands was texting me like, hey, like what time should I show up? My drummer wants to know what to bring, like what should I wear? Like just asking for kind of miscellaneous advice. And that's just how it is. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, we're all like very open with that quote unquote knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
It's like if my friend texts me and he's like, what kind of amp do I need to get to play a good house show? I'm like sharing every single amp I've ever seen at a house show. I'm like listing off every kind of model I've ever known, because they're your friends and you want them to be successful. And even if you don't know them, they probably know your music. You know, that's a connection in and of itself. There's a part of the scene that kind of is overlooked, and it's like the people who aren't in the bands, but who are in the scene.
Yes.
They're the people going to the shows. They're the people organizing the shows. They're the people who just own a house that they let people over on for a night. There's just also this like openness for them to say like, I'm going to let you do this. I'm going to give you space to do that. Because I don't think we would have had some of the shows we had if not people who aren't even musicians, who aren't even like fans of local music. They just say, I want live music. Yeah. And they create opportunities to create that.
Definitely being open to making a space for people to, you know, how should I say this? Giving people the opportunity to fail, if that makes sense too. Like, how hard is it to get into normally, like to get into any kind of scene? And we're not just talking about music, but like if you want to learn and see other people perform or be part of a performance, what is that barrier? And I feel like a lot of the house shows around here manage to lower that barrier so that you get a lot of people that are able to be at a house show either watching or performing or even hosting.
It's kind of like when you're 14 years old, you're trying to learn how to play an instrument, and you're gonna sound so bad for so long. Right. And then it's like your parents giving you like the basement or the garage or like a closet, and they're like, go for it. You know, you have to like provide a space. And I always said this, you have to suck before you can be good. There's a lot of openness to bands being like, I haven't heard of you. Someone I know knows you. Come play a show.
You don't have to be good to play a house show in Urbana. Yes. I think that's the best thing about it. Like, you can suck. You can sound so bad, and you can still play a show. And
people
probably
will still
keep
like
playing
it.
shows, and people will still like it.
Yeah.
And that's the blessing of it.
You know, it's just a wanting to make music.
Yeah, like, it's about the creation of the art.
Yeah.
More so than a judgment of whether the art is good or whether it aligns to certain values or whether you're good enough at your instrument.
I'd also like to point out that, like, a lot of the venues we listed off make safety a huge priority.
Yes.
And like, I'm a 5'2" like young woman. If I'm like in a house that's like shoulder to shoulder with people, I'm probably gonna like fall over and get trampled, you know?
Right.
And so many of these shows I've seen, the people running it, they have their phone numbers up on like posted on the wall. They're wearing like bright colors or like glowy things so you can easily like pull them over and be like, hey. So many places we've played at have like removed people who have been making other people uncomfortable. It's there's a lot of desire to make everyone feel safe and like want to be there.
I think that there is unfortunately a common power dynamic in DIY music, not just here but everywhere, where most of the bands playing are like straight white men, for lack of a better way to describe it, and most of the fans are not straight white men. Like, overwhelmingly, I feel like our fans are like women and queer people.
Someone tell our Spotify to represent that. Spotify's like 57% male.
Maybe I'm telling myself that to
No.
make myself feel better.
That was me making a joke on like Spotify algorithm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But like the people who go to our shows are broadly...
I mean, they're our friends, you know?
Yeah. They're people like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Places like the Forest and places like the Rose Bowl, it's like, you don't need to like know someone to play there. You need to make music and you need to be passionate about your music. And then lo and behold, you have like an awesome opportunity to share that music.
My 2 key takeaways from a year in the scene or so are, one is that you got to pretend that this is more serious than it is to some extent. Have fun, obviously, but
Secret.
part of it, I feel, in my opinion, is sort of not lying to yourself, not pretending, but like looking up to how do the bigger bands do this, and just doing that to less people. Like, you can be formal and still be a small band. You can be a punk band that wants to break their own shit on stage as long as you're respectful as you're trying to set up the show and all that. And that's very important. And I think that this scene has a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Another rule, and there's not people in the scene like this, but it's like just don't be pricks, guys. It's like we can just all have fun. People can suck if they're on stage. People can blow your mind if they're on stage.
Overwhelmingly, they do blow our minds.
Yeah. I can't come up with the last time I saw a bad band here, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, it helps that a lot of people in the scene, music is serious to them, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a party, you know? A lot of the venues we listed, they're there to put a show on for the DIY scene.
Almost to work out of that sort of, a lot of houses with music, they get lumped under this umbrella of like, oh, it's a house party.
It's a house
you want to
party.
go and drink 7 PBRs
You
for
wanna-
$8 and throw up on the front lawn and not pay attention to the music. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I feel very fortunate that the scene here just seems to be like, yeah, let's have a good show. Let's keep people safe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think I gave a warning earlier in the episode where I'm just cynical, right? I'm critical.
CW.
We are nothing if
simple.
not haters.
We are sad bastards and we have something to say.
Yeah.
That would be my only complaint, is that sometimes I feel like the people who go to shows, they're treating it as a party. And, you know, I have to like retreat from that a little bit because they're still there enjoying music, you know? I think the venues giving us a space, like you said, to just create music is a huge opportunity in and of itself. And it definitely is like a blessing even that so many people are engaging with it, you know? We've played very few shows where like no one is there. And I think that's just a credit to the DIY scene.
Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details. on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Romantica, feel free to jump forward. I'm wondering, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
Simple joys. I think that there's honestly a lot of things that we just don't appreciate on a day-to-day basis that are worth appreciating. And one of my favorites recently is just looking at old shit.
Like literal?
No, that's
okay.
your, that's
We have
like
a manure
your
pile over
occupation.
there if you want to.
Ooh.
It's not old, though.
Ah, man. I'll go for a little dive. Nah, I'm just kidding. I recently took a little excursion to a Jane Addams bookstore in Champaign. So ever since I was around 4 years old, as soon as I could walk alongside him and keep pace, my dad would always think he thought it was important for me to follow him to the record store every time he went. That gave me sort of an appreciation for just loving these old things, these documents really of history and things like that, and how you can just crack them open and put them on your turntable or put them on your desk to read them. And just the appreciation of these things that people have created, the little things that people tend to ignore almost. Like, somebody had to write those liner notes about that 1958 jazz album that you're picking up for a couple dollars, and just as somebody had to write whatever, like, poetry book and all that. It's just the appreciation of the frequently ignored is something that's been bringing me a lot of joy recently. And on my trip to Jane Addams, I bought just some poetry books that I hadn't heard of, and flipping through these, not even reading them in a traditional sense, but even skimming them has brought me a lot of appreciation for those types of things. The way the pages feel, the way that a font is on a page, just those little things that make your brain feel good, I say. People need to just focus more on embracing these things, I think.
This one's kind of a cop-out because it basically is music, but just creating, you know? While we were, like, talking in this podcast about, like, art being a reflection of an ephemeral, like, time or space or emotion, or I don't know, I think just the simple act of creation is very human, and it's kind of difficult to do now. I'm in school right now. Every single thing we do is through a screen, and it's a very difficult thing to, like, feel real sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think creation is a very simple solution to that. I make art, I make things. I love to crochet. I love to give little gifts to my friends that I make. And it's a very wonderful thing to me, because it's like, I want to make this space I live in better. I want to make it more reflective of me. Yeah. I want to be a part of something beyond the voices, like, in my head. That made me sound crazy. There's no voices in my head. You know, the thoughts bouncing around in you.
We all have voices.
We all have voices,
they just depend
right?
on how it's, you know.
What they're saying.
Yeah.
I promise I'm sane. But it's a very easy way to feel a part of something and to feel in control of, like, yourself, you know? Mm-hmm. I like to think that it's a reflection of both you and your surroundings, of, like, this is what I see, this is what I process, this is what comes out of it. And even something as simple as, like, I'm gonna make myself a blanket that I will use at night is significant. And, you know, silly little doodles that you, like, do on your friend's notebook, that's significant. It's so broad, which is why I said it's kind of a cop-out. But I think it's equally as important as it is broad. Because what are we meant to do besides create? You know? I think it's an easy way to share an experience with someone else.
I really like what you're saying, because it's like those creating objects to just enjoy and for other people to enjoy. A lot of people will see something in a store and it's just sort of, it serves its purpose, but you can take joy in the love that is inevitably inside of an object that somebody makes for you.
You can feel it, you know? When something was crafted with love.
Yes.
It's significant.
Yeah, because if I go to Walmart and I pay $20 for a blanket to keep myself warm, and it doesn't keep me warm, I'm gonna be pissed. but if I get a blanket from my little sister or somebody like that, I'm going to think, well, even if it doesn't perfectly serve its function in this moment, what I can take joy in is the maybe the blanket was too on the nose for this, but the warmth that I'm filled with, from just having this in my hands.
I'm saying that literally because, like, before picking these guys up, I was going at it. I love creating blankets. They take so long, and I love it.
And crocheted.
Yes.
You're saying crocheted blankets.
I have one on my bed currently that
And it's a king size.
Yes.
Wait, no.
It's a queen.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And I'm making one right now. It's really heavy. I like it.
That sounds very time consuming.
I'm kind of insane. It's awesome. I get such like a zap of like happy hormones when I'm like making something.
Huh.
I think if we're being intelligent and insightful, because you guys actually come up with good answers, so now I have to.
You can say
I can't just be
Frappuccino.
like, oh, my dog. I have to find something actually cool.
I was gonna
Your
say
dog
my
counts.
cats, and
Yeah.
then Owen was like simple joys in life.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it all pretentious
Yeah.
and art nerdy.
What I was going to say was like finding connection with people through things that don't matter.
Oh, yeah.
Connecting with someone through like playing a really stupid song, or connecting with someone through like, I don't know, like gossip, or
I
like
love
connecting
that.
with someone through like any number of things that aren't actually important in of themselves, but they're important when they're kind of a vector for people to find community.
I adore that.
Huh.
And I think that's kind of also the intent of what we do as a band. Not to like tie it back around to music, but I think that creating music, it's like what we were saying earlier, but you have to act like it's more important than it is. Because even if it's not important in the sense of like no one cares what chord we played at one point in the song, or like what that specific drum fill is, it ultimately is very impactful because of the community that it creates and the memories that it creates. And let's just, I don't know, it goes beyond what any one of us does individually, and I think that that's important to remember.
I literally have no follow-up questions. Romantica, Lou, Owen, Ava, thank you so much for being on the show and making the trip all the way out here. And
Yay.
Thank you.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. So
We appreciate it too.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. This is Lou.
And I'm Owen,
This is Ava of Romantica.
reminding you,
Great music is out there. Go find it where you live. People actually come up to me a lot after our shows, and they're always like, what the fuck was that?
Sounds so cool.
That's a wrap.
Champagne is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
South Peter on the inside.
I did tell her I scrumped. I just